What's up, everybody? Welcome back into another episode of The Lawyer You Know. And today we are going to break down Ian Whiffin's interview with Cellebrite on their YouTube channel about what it was like to be an expert witness in the Karen Reed case with all the craziness that happened in the background. How did he do it? How did he feel about his work on the case? What can other experts learn from him? How did he feel Karen Reed felt about his testimony in trial 2? Did she compliment him? Did even she admit that he proved his point with the house long to die in the cold, among other things? We're going to get to break it all down together today. I'm going to answer your questions. Let's get to it. All right. So your first question may be, why is this interview happening? The answer to that is, I'm just going to start it off on a roll. I have no idea why they decided to do this interview right now on Cellebrite's own YouTube channel, but I found it to be pretty interesting. We have all sorts of different ways of assessing the abilities of our expert witnesses. A lot of times when it comes to doctor expert witnesses, orthopedic surgeons, spine surgeons, brain surgeons, extremity surgeons like shoulders, knees, elbows, things like that. Most of it has to do with their medical care. What type of job do they do for the client? What's their bedside manner like? What are their surgical results like? What are the reviews for other patients, right? We really want the medical care to be number one. The number two part of that is their testifying ability, because as good of a doctor as they can be, if they can't explain it to a jury or they can't deal with cross-examination from another lawyer in their own expertise, it becomes pretty difficult to use that doctor. Because if the client's going to have all these bills and the person that caused all these bills is not going to end up paying for them at the end of the day, that creates a difficulty as well for the client. And we're trying to get, I'm flying. I know I'm speaking so quickly. We're trying to get a well-rounded expert that is going to be able to provide the best medical care and explain it to a layperson as well as anyone can. So when it comes to assessing experts on liability, on scientific things like accident reconstruction, or if it comes to with billing experts or life care planners, what's the treatment going to look like in the future? How much is that going to cost? When it comes to some specific, whether it comes to building guidelines or ADA guidelines, the different kinds of experts that you can have, you really want to speak with them, have conversations, not just about the case you might hire them for, but as an overall kind of view of what is your expertise, where did you get your expertise, dig into their education, to their experience, to their background. How are they explaining it to you on the phone, right? As the lawyer, or in person if you're meeting with them, because we really need to try to assess how respectable they are, right? What type of expert they're going to be, and if we think they're going to be able to connect with the jury in a way to explain a complex topic in a bite-sized manner to help them take the steps they need to understand our theory of the case, to understand how we see it, and of course, understand the expert's opinion on whatever it is they're testifying about. So anytime we get something like this, I find it interesting. Somebody that we've watched testify multiple times that was a very key expert in the case, and that, I'll just say, some people, like Karen Reed or not, like the Commonwealth or not, had a lot of thoughts about Ian Whiffin. And Karen Reed's own team had a lot of thoughts about Ian Whiffin because they changed their strategy based on updates and changes between Ian Whiffin's testimony and report in trial 1 and trial 2, to where they didn't even call Richard Green. And Ian Whiffin's going to mention that. So it's always important to understand what the expert's going to say, why they're going to say it. And some lawyers like to fight about the expertise. Some don't. Some want to argue on the margins or pick certain portions apart or talk to your own expert before you cross-examine the other side's expert. So we're going to take a listen as to how he felt throughout the entire Karen Reed case, which we all know there was a lot of craziness around, right? We dealt with it plenty on this channel. I'm sure a lot of you guys dealt with it in the chats all over the place. I know we have some other content creators that are in the chat as well, and maybe even some people involved in the case, witnesses, family members of either side, whatever it may be. A lot of people felt a lot of good and bad throughout the entirety of the Karen Reed case. Some people got paid to do it. Some people signed up to do it. Others did not. Some people got more experience or expertise or future clients because of the Karen Read case. And when you understand that it's going to be part of your job and it's something that you're choosing to go out there and talk about, myself included, right? Nobody forced me to talk about Karen Read, although I could blame all of you guys in the chat right now. I see Ashley and Sleuthy and a lot of people sending me documents and questions that forced me to cover Karen Read. I'm just kidding, of course. But I choose to sit here and talk about Karen Read. So I choose to have people come and discuss this case with me. Sometimes they do it in a nice and respectful way, even if they disagree. Sometimes they don't. And that's just part of life and part of what we're doing here, talking about difficult topics. And if you're going to put yourself on there, out there online, and people don't like a lot of things about me, right? About my personality, about what I believe, about how I practice and what I practice, and the fact that I'm a lawyer at all. And that's okay. I welcome that, right? John O'Rourke, we had a lot of discussions. He's always in the chat, and we disagree on some cases. We agree on some. He gave me some tough questions and some tough love about his feelings on lawyers from the jump, first time we met him. He's still here. He's still hanging around. We're still learning from each other. So I think it's a really cool experience that we get to have here on YouTube, even with the whole mean tweets and mean comments part of it. That's going to be part of life. That's going to be part of it. And we're going to hear what Ian Whiffin has to say about that as well. So let's get into this interview now.
This case is like a super onion.
Infamous Google search, cost long to die in the cold.
Cellebrite updated fiscal analyzer.
This Google search became a pivotal piece of evidence for the defense.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a special edition of Ask the Expert. I'm Heather Barnhart, and I'm here with Ian Whiffin, the infamous genius who...
Kind of funny that she starts out calling him infamous, right? I thought that was kind of funny. And a genius, by the way.
Was tied to the Karen Read trial. We are here for the very first time to discuss this with you.
We are coming on the air with breaking news.
Karen Read walking out of court with hand over heart and a major win in her murder trial redo.
Just to catch you up, in case you've lived under a rock or avoided social media and the news, Karen Read is a Massachusetts woman who earlier this summer was acquitted of murder in her boyfriend's tragic death. This was her second trial. So Ian, I believe the first trial ended with a hung jury and it was a mistrial. So she had to go through it twice. You had to go through it twice. More of her background. Her boyfriend, John O'Keefe, was a Boston police officer. And in January of 2022, he was found dead in the front lawn of another Boston police officer's home in a Massachusetts suburb in the early morning hours in the middle of a blizzard. I'm not going to get into the details of all of the basics and the found.
I'm not going to get into the details of all the basics. Why do you think that is? Why do you think that they are choosing not to get into the details, right? Can't blame them. You got to be careful the waters you wade in. But I mean, talking about this, you're kind of opening up to people's opinions on the Karen Read case. Bella E said the loophole lawyer gives you a lot of trouble, Peter, LOL. I don't know who that is, but it doesn't surprise me. There's lots of people, right, that have lots of feelings and thoughts about me. Some of them lawyers, some of them not. And I'm kind of surprised if he is a real lawyer. I'm not saying he's not. Obviously, I don't know who he is, but most, like pretty much every single real lawyer that's ever reached out to me or talked to me about this stuff is pretty on board. Like I just had a really nice comment the other day. Like, I'm a lawyer from Indiana. I appreciate so much what you do. We agree on most stuff. And even when we don't agree, I understand how you get there. That's all I'm really looking for. You know, and I love when lawyers reach out to me and paralegals reach out to me, people working in the legal field. It is really cool. So it's people I'm sure will send me clips about what he's saying about me, but I get it. And that's totally fine if somebody disagrees with, you know, what I say or how I look. A lot of people have a lot of feelings about the way that I look and, you know, long hair and whatever, you know, don't look like a lawyer, whatever. It is what it is, right? It's the world we live in.
Of this case. You have read it, you've heard it. I'm sure Ian will allude more to the digital evidence and what that spoke for. But the prosecution accused Karen.
And of course, I didn't mean any people are saying, you know who he is. I didn't mean any offense by saying I didn't know who he is. I'm sure he's great. I don't know who he is. And that's not a hit. I'm sure somebody will send me something and I will see his page now.
Of driving drunk and backing into John with her SUV and then fleeing the scene, leaving him to die in the snow. The defense said that Karen Read was innocent and dropped John O'Keefe off at home and left. They said he was beat up in the home and dumped on the lawn. So this is where the conspiracies really came out. The police officers apparently were involved and covered it up. So everyone has their own opinions. We've seen them all over social media.
After saying she's not going to get into the details of the case, she kind of just gives a little, here's what some people think may have happened, which I think there's a good little level of intrigue to the way that she explained it. So that's fine. All right. Last comment on Loophole Lawyer here. Sleuthy said, to be fair, Loophole Lawyer does constantly mention how handsome you are. It's not your looks he talks about. Well, hey, at least he can find something nice to say, right? It's nice if he hammers me on some things, but constantly mentions how handsome I am. I guess I could take that. Loophole Lawyer is a lot of satire. Okay. And he's funny. All right. I'm going to have to check him out now. I'm officially going to have to check him out. Laura, thank you for gifting a Lawyer membership, picking up where we left off yesterday. It's a pretty wild day of gifted memberships yesterday. So a lot of new members here, and I appreciate that.
But that's really the basics of the case. This case is like a super onion with so many layers. The more you peel back, you're like, what is actually happening? It was a media circus, extremely high profile. And our very own Ian Whiffin was kind of the ringmaster at times of that circus. So Ian, seriously, I applaud you, one, for your patience and not flipping out. I know many times I wanted to flip out on your behalf. So I was emotionally in this with you, but you did a fantastic job. For those of you that don't know Ian, he's not just the brilliant mind of forensics. He is also our decoding manager here at Cellebrite.
So let's stop there for a second and talk about how she says she doesn't understand how he didn't flip out. She was kind of flipping out on his behalf. Okay. So I see a lot of more comments. A lot of people are looking up Loophole Lawyer now. So Loophole Lawyer, welcome to the chat, sir. But she talks about how angry she got on his behalf. And let's think about this a couple different ways, okay? Number one is how everybody else feels about Ian Whiffin, how people that, ride for Karen Reed feel about everything the Commonwealth touched, everything like that. I get that, okay? But you have to understand, if you work with somebody, if you know somebody, trust somebody, love somebody, admire somebody, think they're amazing, think they're a genius, which clearly she does for Ian Whiffin, I can understand how people slamming that person would be like, I'm annoyed for you. I think that was frustrating for you. I got annoyed for you. But whether she meant to or not, regardless of what you think about her for saying that Ian Whiffin did not get that bothered by it, and, I was screaming on your behalf because you weren't screaming, I take that as a plus for Ian Whiffin. And again, if I'm evaluating him as an expert, that's how you have to be. You have to be able to deal with that stuff. You have to be cool, calm, and collected. You've got to be able to deal with negative comments, especially if you're going to be an expert in a high-profile case. So from my perspective, I think that's a good compliment for Ian Whiffin, whether she meant it that way or not.
So Ian takes all the things that are stored in that lovely brain of his and tries to dump it back into the tools for everyone else that needs Ian's brain to help us solve our digital forensic investigations. All right, Ian, you ready for some questions?
I am. Go for it.
And then we'll have some fun at the end too. All right. Why were you brought into this case?
Yeah. And she also called him like the ringleader of the circus or something. And I was like, the ringleader? Like he's definitely not the ringleader of either side of this circus. If anything, he's like one of the acts at the circus, I guess, trapeze artist or something. I don't know. That analogy didn't really work for me as far as him being the ringleader at the circus. I was like, also very weird to say. So like he was like the leader, the puppet master of all this. Like, come on. All right. But I found it interesting how he got involved in the case. I don't know if I knew this or not. I don't think I knew this.
Go for it.
And then we'll have some fun at the end too. All right. Why were you brought into this case?
Okay. So I initially got involved in this case after a true crime podcaster contacted Cellebrite asking for clarification because of some things that he'd seen in other people's blogs, some things that had been tweeted related to an artifact that Physical Analyzer had passed.
Okay. Did you guys know he got contacted by a true crime podcaster? You guys probably did already. I didn't know that. Do you know which true crime podcaster reached out to Cellebrite? I did not know that. I found that to be very interesting. And this goes to show that this is really something that happens in these high profile cases. We knew it happened with our favorite dog bite expert, Dr. Russell. We knew it happened with even potentially some of the lawyers that got involved in the case, some of the other witnesses that got involved in the case. We know a lot of the podcasters, true crime people had something to do with that on Karen Reed's side. I wasn't aware that that's how he got involved with working for the Commonwealth. And if I did know that, and I was a lawyer on Karen Reed's side, I would have liked to have brought that out in trial, especially when Hank Brennan made such a big deal about how Dr. Russell got involved, which really wasn't even a true crime podcast, but she saw something on it and then she reached out to a mutual friend. But it was the media attention that kind of got her involved. And somebody said Richard Green contacted the help desk. I don't think Richard Green would be considered a true crime podcaster. People are saying Ian Whiffin's told multiple stories about this. Okay, I didn't know that. But I did not know that he was at all involved because of a true crime podcaster. I find that very interesting. I find that something that I would have liked to elicit a trial potentially. But then again, just making it sound like the Commonwealth hired him, which is what ended up happening as well, is probably better for the jury. But it would have been interesting just to know that ahead of time. I wonder if Karen Reed's team knew that.
Basically, police had obviously extracted a bunch of phones at the time of John's death, done their own analysis, including the analysis of a witness's device, which was written off at the time as not containing anything relevant to the case. About a year later, defense experts took that same extraction and ran it through physical analyzer as well, and now found a timestamp which they thought was a smoking gun. The time.
And I don't know that if he is trying to make that sound nefarious, that now they claim it's a smoking gun. It was like, well, it kind of seemed like a smoking gun. To any lay person, when it comes to this stuff, which would include lawyers like myself, if I saw that timestamp, that would feel like a smoking gun to me. That is, from my perspective, that is a smoking gun, right? So for him to say, oh, they thought they found a smoking gun, it's like, well, they did find a smoking gun. If you want to explain it a different way, that's fine. You're the expert. Explain it your way. But it definitely felt like a smoking gun at the time. Netwoman said, who is Richard Green? He was Karen Reed's counterpart to Ian Whiffin, kind of, and their other cell phone expert. He was the cell phone data expert that they called during trial 1 and decided not to call during trial 2. Zezalek said, will they be able to use this interview if they bring him in for the civil trial? Anybody can use this interview at any time when Ian Whiffin testifies. You're allowed to use any other statements to impeach them. Again, it has to be relevant. So you have to say something like, if you wanted to ask him, hey, you went on and you did an interview and this is how you said experts are supposed to act. You went on, you did an interview. If it's about Karen Reed, say a true crime podcaster is the one that got you involved in this case, right? And if he says no, you can use this to impeach him. So any statements experts give generally, you can use to impeach them or to ask them other questions. You can always be learning, right? ABL, always be learning when it comes to questioning witnesses or experts as a lawyer. All of this information can absolutely be used in any depositions or cases that he works on in the future. Yes, everybody hit that like button if you haven't already.
The timestamp itself was related to a Google search, the infamous Google search, "Hoss long to die in the cold," which is an obvious misspelling of the term "how long to die in the cold." I'll say that this search had actually been found initially by police using Physical Analyzer 752, but at that time, the timestamp attached to it was around 6:23, 6:24 a.m. after.
Okay, so the police originally downloaded it as 6:23, 6:24. Just so you know, that's what makes it interesting. That's what makes it a potential smoking gun. This is the type of information defense attorneys are like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Was it at 2:27 or was it at 6:23? We know what a big deal about it is. We know how big of a deal it is. This is exactly what defense lawyers do in cases, good defense lawyers that dig in. Yes, that's where I got it, Amanda. ABC, always be closing, baby. Michael Scott, my guy. Common Sense said, loophole lawyer teases you because you're handsome. I welcome that. I welcome any kind of teasing, especially this kind. Welcome to all the new members as well. A bunch of new members joining here too.
John's body had been found and therefore deemed not evidentially significant. However, when the expert for the defense took the same data, they used a newer version of Physical Analyzer. This newer version has additional support. Obviously, we always add support for new artifacts as time goes on. And this new artifact support for a database called Browser State gave a timestamp of 2:27 a.m.
Okay, so he said the defense expert used a newer tool. Newer in technology is usually better. Not always, but newer is usually better. And what I want to remind you of is later on in the interview, I don't know if it's later on in part 1 or part 2, we're going to watch both today, but later on in the interview, listen to what they say about newer updates and newer tools and what's better.
For that same Google search. And that's important. 2:27 is a really important time because that would mean that this is around 3.5, 4 hours before John's body was found, implying that somebody had some knowledge that he was outside dying in the cold before.
Bada bing, bada bang. If true that it happened at 2:27, Ian Whiffin is even explaining why that is so important and why a lawyer may want to look into that. That timeline just isn't adding up.
Or anybody should have known that that was the case. So this Google search became a pivotal piece of evidence for the defense to try to prove that someone other than Karen was responsible for John's death.
So a few things. I have many comments on this one. Cellebrite updated physical analyzer based upon.
All right. So Bella just said, I'm confused. This interview had. Yes, this interview I think was recent. A bunch of people just sent it to me. I don't remember what day it was actually done. I don't know when it was done, but it was posted 4 days ago. At least part 2 was posted 4 days ago. So this is relatively new, just coming out now. But I'm saying in the civil case, if Whiffin is involved, this can be used, or any other case not involving Karen Reed, because he's about to say a lot of things about how he goes about his job as an expert.
On your research and what you learned in that case, so that people who don't understand how to validate, don't have time to validate, and for better lack of other terms, press buttons to get answers, the answer will be correct in their face going forward.
Yes, I think we all.
How she said, if you press buttons to get answers, the answer will be correct going forward. By the way, this is important, okay? You're noticing here what an expert can sound like. And Ian Whiffin's not the only one to do something like this. My own experts give speeches and they give talks and seminars on different things that they're experts in and how this tool works, how this surgery works, why they do this procedure, whatever it may be, right? So he's not the only one. But you're noticing what an expert can sound like and how different it can sound when there's no lawyer cross-examining them, when there's no counter expert testifying to why they're wrong. And I'm not saying, and that goes for Ian Whiffin as well. He gets to counter some experts get to counter him. But it's so much easier to walk through this and make it sound exactly the way you want it to sound when nobody's scrutinizing you, nobody's cross-examining you, nobody's searching for the truth if they disagree with you. It's the same way I say, every motion a lawyer files, you should agree with that lawyer because it's just his position and the case law that he or she wants to put in their motion. So it should sound good. You should somewhat agree with the lawyer unless you already know better. It's the same thing with experts. So he should sound like he knows what he's talking about. He should sound great. And she's even going to lead him down the path and try to help him sound as good as possible. And you notice how different that is than when we hear experts, including Ian Whiffin, because we got to hear him cross-examine multiple times. It's very different what happens in court than what happens on YouTube, in a motion filed by a lawyer, or in any seminar that you hear an expert give.
Always try to provide information which is correct to the best of our knowledge and ability at the time based on the research.
And I'm just going to point out these qualifiers. To the best of our knowledge and ability at the time. At the time.
We always want to give information which can be verified by the examiners. And in this case, once I started to look at the data and look at the evidence, I determined that the timestamp in the browser state database was related to the time that the tab, so the browser tab actually took focus, and not the time that the search occurred or the navigation event occurred. So essentially, if you imagine opening up a brand new tab at 10 a.m. in the morning, using it to search for 30 minutes or so, visited numerous web pages during that time. When you eventually close that tab, a record's created in the browser state database saying the tab opened at 10 a.m. The last page that was visited, the one that was visited at like 10:30, is this. So there's no correlation between the two. And that's essentially what my research was focusing on, that timestamp is not necessarily the time the page was visited. It could be before, it could be after, but it's irrelevant to the actual URL. So based on that, we updated our decoding to remove any kind of confusion and to ensure that
They opened up the coding to remove confusion. So what does that mean? Well, they're admitting there was confusion. How do you get confusion? It seems like it's spitting out multiple answers. It seems like it's spitting out answers that you believe to be wrong. So these are changes and manipulations. By the way, every manipulation is not bad, right? You can manipulate things well. You can manipulate for good. You can fix things by manipulating things, right? You guys know I'm not a real handsy guy, but like if you put in a nail here and turn a screw here, you can manipulate something to make it work better, right? So manipulation is not always bad. So to say that he manipulated or they manipulated something in the background to change the outcome, that's exactly what happened, because the prior outcome they found to be wrong. But the prior outcome at the time was, at the time, what we thought to be correct with the best of our knowledge with the newest and most accurate tool. So to say you disagree with it is fine. Does it invalidate everything that was done in the past based on the way the tool worked prior? That's a problem for an expert. You don't usually want to admit that. And if you do admit that, then there can be a lot of fallout for lawyers dealing with Ian Whiffin, dealing with Cellebrite, dealing with all of the tools being mentioned in this trial. When you have this type of change, when you have this type of manipulation, that opens up a lot of questions and a lot of potential issues. Kraft said he needs to show other samples of the same error to prove that the 227 wasn't real, and he didn't. Loophole lawyer uses AI to make you do silly things. Oof, that's a dangerous road to go down. I could only imagine how that could go. But yeah, so they did their little demonstration in trial live. I understand what he's saying. You open up whatever you were searching last to do your newest search, and it's showing the timestamp from when you opened up the original tab. To me, that renders pretty much all times of searches totally useless. Yet we know it's been used in many trials. I've used it myself in trials. I've never seen somebody make this kind of argument or explanation. Now that it's here, I've talked to some other current and former prosecutors about this. Maybe we're going to do a second look. Maybe Ian Whiffin's about to get a bunch of business because of this. Because this is definitely something different. And when something different happens in the law, people usually notice. And this type of change, I can see it as problematic. Tara said, possibly and not necessarily stands out to me. Yeah, exactly. Because frankly, the way he's looking at it, who's to say a new tool is not going to come out tomorrow and say, oh, you're actually wrong, Ian Whiffin. So let's go back now and change everything else. There has to be a reason the tool is working the way it's working. If it's just spitting out completely incorrect information, that's really dangerous. So how do we know that we have it right now? Because, by the way, he's absolutely right. And he's going to talk about updates. Updates are important, but updates shouldn't change the answer from A to B, right? The updates should maybe make it easier to get to B, or more obvious that it's B, or more of an explanation as to why it's B. But if it changes the answer to A, that makes me a little nervous as a lawyer, if I'm going to rely on that to put people in prison. Netwoman, thank you so much. Gifting 10 more Lawyer You Know memberships. She's responsible for a huge chunk of the Lawyer You Know members recently. So thank you so much. Let's keep listening.
We give you the web page that was visited, but we can't say that this is the time. So we just remove the time altogether because we don't.
And I think
we can't say that this is the time. Not we can say this is not the time, right? That was a double negative, but it's important. Stick with me. I know that can be confusing, so I'll say it again. Let's first listen to him say it, and then I'll repeat it.
This is the time. So we just remove the web page that was visited, but we can't say that this is the time. So we just remove the time altogether because we.
So he doesn't say, we are saying it is not at 227, but we can't say for sure that it is 227. So we just remove the time altogether. If I'm cross-examining him, I might say, Well, how about this time? How about this time? How about this time that Cellebrite prints out? Why do you put those times on there?
You don't
And I
want this.
think that's way better. And
She thinks it's way better. So I guess that's all that matters, right? It's like, that's why lawyers are so important, right? Obviously, lawyers sitting here, it might just be a little stereotypical for me to talk about how important lawyers are. But like, that's why lawyers are so important. And people hate lawyers for picking apart certain sentences and words and mistakes in a police report or an expert report. But it's like, this stuff is precise and we need this to be correct, or else it's just like, yeah, that sounds good enough. And the jury's like, yeah, sure. Why not? This sounds good enough. We'll go with that. It's like, no, sir. Let's back it up and talk about this more.
Thing I wanted to comment to some of the social media trolls who have zero digital forensics knowledge in their bodies, but they
Neither does the jury. They have zero digital forensic knowledge in their bodies. The point is, how does the jury understand what Ian Whiffin is saying? That's the question. And if he's slinging BS, which I don't even know if he is, right? Because I don't have digital forensic knowledge in my body, but I can critically think. I have common sense, just like jurors, which is why lawyers need to ask the questions that if there are issues, a light bulb will go off. A red flag might pop up. If he's saying this, does this really make sense with that? He's saying probably, he's saying maybe, he's saying that tool that we all believed was true this entire time is now dead wrong. Can't jive with that.
think they know better than our very own Ian Whiffin. Tools cannot be static in nature. A static tool should never be used in a forensic lab ever, because technology is constantly changing. These apps change, browsers change, and we adapt to it. So we have to just keep the research going and keep feeding our tools and making them better.
So what she just gave me is a question that I would like to ask basically every cell phone expert from here into perpetuity. I would like to ask them that question. Isn't it true? These websites, these browsers, these tools are always changing. So the tools are fluid. And sometimes Cellebrite will actually put out timestamps that you believe are completely wrong. And then you go and update the tool and you just erase those timestamps. Isn't that true, Mr. Whiffin? Hasn't that happened in the past? So you're sitting here relying on these timestamps, and maybe next month you'll create something that completely erases that timestamp, right? You don't know. It's fluid. It could change. It could be a new browser, a new cell phone, a new tool. Isn't that true, Mr. Whiffin? How reliable is that evidence? Would you throw someone in prison for the rest of their life based on that evidence? They would need a lot more corroborating evidence than that. I wouldn't say it's useless, but I would say the usefulness of it is significantly diminished.
Of course, yeah. I mean, we have to update our tools constantly to account for bugs that may exist in our software, bugs that may exist in the applications that we're decoding, changes made by vendors, or simply because our understanding changes. And this is a perfect example of where the testing that was originally done.
Our understanding changes. I think of more cross-examination questions just off the top of my head as we're going here. It's like, well, isn't that convenient? Your understanding of it changed in a way to help your client and who you're here testifying for.
Focused on a particular use case, but this case brought to light additional use cases and different ways that that data can be populated, and the possibility that timestamp probably isn't accurate.
That timestamp probably isn't accurate. I mean, the only logical follow-up to that is, so it could be accurate. If you're saying it probably isn't accurate, then it could be accurate. If you say it's absolutely not accurate, then fine. Sleuthy said, so what about all prior convictions using the old software with the wrong info? Ian Whiffin, maybe he's going to get on a lot of post-conviction cases now. We had DNA updates overturn a bunch of things. Truth is, those people really never get a second shot, even if this is correct. It's tough. Peter, don't you change the software to make it more accurate and better, not to delete the data that is reported? Well, Michael, I believe Ian Whiffin would say the only way to make it more accurate and better is to delete that timestamp so that it is not confusing. I think that's what he would say. Now, from my perspective, he could have also said, we're going to leave the timestamp and the experts are going to have to know that the timestamp actually means when the browser was open, not when the search was made, as opposed to deleting data, explaining the data. That's what you're there for. You're an expert. But I'm not, I don't have digital forensic knowledge in my body. What did she say? In our bodies? Aaron Roy, as someone who works with digital data daily, we have a term dedicated to manipulating data. Raw data is rarely used because most of it is encrypted. Interesting. Tara, the user's Google search history would clear it up. Okay.
Great. So what you're really saying, Ian, is that Cellebrite chose to make the tool better for users, and we weren't trying to be some part of the giant conspiracy of Karen Reed.
Objection leading.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, we would never modify our decoding or our tool for any other reason than to do what we think is forensically best.
When he said we would never change the way our tool works. And I was like, well, isn't that exactly what we did? What he meant, unless it was going to make it forensically better.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, we would never modify our decoding or our tool for any other reason than to do what we think is forensically best. We want to give the users the information that we believe is accurate. And in this case, this particular artifact is super easy to validate. You can get any test device and test this out yourself. If we were to modify our software for any kind of nefarious purpose, it wouldn't take long before users realized and quite rightly took us to task for doing things wrong. Right?
So you needed the users to notice it and then let you know and take you to task for doing things wrong. There's another cross-examination question. Isn't it true, Mr. Whiffin, that you guys don't always find your own mistakes? Isn't it true? Users have had to take you to task in the past about timestamps being completely wrong, and they were so wrong that you went back and started deleting them off reports, and there are certain timestamps that you don't even let come out even though they exist in the report. Isn't that true? You realize I can apply that to any timestamp now that I want to as a defense lawyer, which people will, I'm sure, turn into like slimy, whatever, but it's true. He's saying, and if it can happen for this timestamp, why can it not happen for that timestamp? And maybe jurors will be like, oh, that's BS, Peter. Or maybe jurors will be like, yeah, I'm not going to take that as some serious evidence to prove this beyond a reasonable doubt.
We only do things because we think it's right.
Well, that's good.
Well, Ian, I thank you for your time and what you do for this community and for our viewers. Next up, part 2. We're going to discuss testifying in court. Best practices, how to be cool and calm and collected like Ian himself. Especially in a case like this that is so conspiracy driven, where there are people that firmly believe one way or the other. They were willing to like put themselves out there on the line for, is she guilty? Is she not guilty? We're also going to have some fun. We're going to read some of the mean tweets that were thrown Ian's way by the social media trolls of the world.
I love a good mean tweet. I love a good mean tweet. We are going to watch part 2 right now. Let me answer a few questions first. Emmy said her life was on the line and probably is supposed to be good enough. Right, exactly. That's what I'd like to drill into the jury's head as a defense lawyer. This sounds like Cellebrite salvaging itself. I mean, Cellebrite is such a huge, they're not like going under because of this. I think they might very well have issues because of this. I used to work with it a lot more earlier when I was doing more criminal defense than I do now, but could still come up, and this is on my radar now. And I'm going to make sure it's on prosecutors' radars and defense attorneys' radars that I talk to when I speak at events. I'm going to make sure this is a big part of it. Frankly, I feel like right now reaching out to the Florida Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers and doing a seminar on just this, explaining what Ian Whiffin said and getting people's opinions in the room of how they're going to take this back and use it, because it's strange for me. Michelle said, he said he had an idea of how the search got deleted, but he couldn't replicate it. Somehow he was confident to say that it wasn't user deleted though. And Michelle brings up a great point with experts. That's usually how you prove things scientifically, right? You have to be able to recreate it. That's one of the big unanswered questions for scientists of all time is they can't recreate life without starting with life, right? There are all sorts of experiments where a scientist can say whatever he wants. Like he could say it was for sure not user deleted. I think it was deleted X way. Okay, show us how X way works. Well, I can't. I can't recreate it. And if you can't recreate it, it's still a question mark. We still don't know. People can have their ideas. People can have their theories. But beyond a reasonable doubt to testify as an expert that that is the answer and that is the truth, you can't do it in a court of law. All right, let's get to part 2. Peter, even if I delete something, it still shows on my cell phone bill. Yeah, there are still ways to show deleted items for the most part. I think if you switch phones, I think there are ways it goes away. And, I don't know exactly how it works, right? I'm not the digital forensic expert. But yeah, just because you delete it doesn't always mean it's deleted. Ashley D said, for all the new members, we sometimes go through mean tweets about Peter on our members only lives. Yeah, those are always some of my favorites. Maybe I need to check out Loophole Lawyer, although everybody says generally he's very nice to me. So I appreciate that, Loophole Lawyer. But maybe we'll have some mean tweets or clips from him to play on our next members only live. It's always fun. And it's just like part of it, right? That's just how life works sometimes. People have some mean stuff to say about you. Or about me, I should say. That would be awesome. Seminar, then bring us back what they say. I'll do that. That's what I love to do. I like to merge the world of real lawyers and YouTube together. You yell, we shall. His testimony in these videos are begging to be Exhibit A and B on appellate petitions. I don't see anything that's like a major appeal issue. A lot of what he's saying is what he testified to. And she's saying he's cool, calm, collected. I do think he's cool, calm, collected. I think he is. I think his demeanor is perfectly fine. I think he's very confident in what he says. Now, I could cross-examine him and pick it apart, which I could do with most experts, right? And from my perspective, that'll happen with most lawyers and most experts. And frankly, he got up there, he testified to what the Commonwealth needed, and I thought it was a good argument for the Commonwealth. I thought he did a good job explaining it. In my little brain, I can understand what he's saying. Because of course, if I were to open up my phone right now and I were to just tell you, okay, I'm going to open up and it's VineSign, which is, we use FileVine as our practice management software. There's a quick plug for them. If any lawyers want to use FileVine, I can get you a discount code. But I have a VineSign and that's been open since yesterday. So if I were to take that VineSign and delete that website and type in, fantasy football or whatever I want to look up, fantasy football rankings for this week, I understand that he's saying that timestamp for that fantasy football search will be when I originally opened that tab to look at the VineSign. That's what he's explaining. I can get that, right? So I understand what he's saying. It is problematic, and it does call into question so many other things, which we would have to dig into if we were cross-examining him. But at least he provided a theory that the jury could probably understand as part of the how's long to die in the cold. Now, unfortunately, he couldn't say anything about whether or not a car accident happened. But I get it. I get where he got there. I get how he explains it. And now we're going to, listen more about what he says about being an expert witness.
This was
Some mean tweets, of course.
another level.
Let the evidence speak to you.
Karen saying that I was right is,
I just saw this tweet.
I knew I was right with it.
So what do you think?
Karen knew I was right, and I knew I was right. Can't wait to hear that.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for part 2 of this special edition of Ask the Expert. I'm Heather Barnhart, and I have with me
A bunch of people saying things like, but Peter, that's not true. Sleuthy said, but then how can we say anyone ever does any searches? That's the problematic part, right? That's the problematic part. What color paint did Cellebrite test with this? Good one. Happy birthday in a couple days, Peter, and big swing and whiff from these two yokels at Cellebrite. I see what you did there. Netwoman, he could sell it better if he talked about another trial along with Karen Reed, as well as not using metric sys. Happy birthday, Eve. gift Peter a like. Yes, everybody, please give me a like. Hit the like button on the video if you haven't, and subscribe. Please subscribe, because a lot of people are telling me when they sign back in, they're not subscribed anymore. So let's get that fixed. But I agree with you, Netwoman. That would have been a really great call. And a lot of times they discuss, how do we want to do this? What do we want the video to be? What do we want the point of the video to be? I would have included other cases as well. I would have said Karen Reed and the John Smith case and whatever else. You've testified in all these cases. I think that makes him seem like more of an expert rather than just trying to ride the coattails of one trial. And then Netwoman, of course, another little birthday gift. 10 more memberships to all of you.
Again, Ian Whiffin, and we're discussing the Karen Reed case. If you didn't watch part 1, go back and spend the time to understand how Ian got involved in this case, some of the chaos behind it, and what the key digital evidence actually was. So Ian let the evidence tell the truth, and he simply testified to that truth. In part 2, we want to focus on that. So
he let the evidence tell the probable truth.
Ian was amazing in court. The judge was even smiling at you, Ian, when you were done testifying. I felt like everyone wanted to give you a round of applause. But in addition to this case taking its own life form, the Karen Reed supporters, all the noise at the courthouse, so much media chatter everywhere, you turned off your notifications. You were getting distracted by all of the noise. Before we even talk about how you prepared to do that, I will say, even in the Idaho murder prep, when I asked you, Ian, should I watch these things? Should I listen to these things? You're like, absolutely not. Isolate yourself. That was some of the best advice that I think all of us could take. You need to let the evidence speak to you and not really let social media or the conspiracy theorists out there sway you in one way or another. All right, so we're going to talk about prepping, Ian, prepping for this case, which we...
So I'll always be a proponent. Sure, if you don't like the notifications, turn them off. I don't turn my notifications off, but I don't always read, especially on YouTube. I'll read a lot of the comments on Twitter and stuff. On Instagram, people are generally nice there too. On Twitter, it's a pretty good mix. Sometimes I will, sometimes I won't read the comments and things like that. Generally, if I know it's going down a certain way, the mute button is also amazing. And the mute button is a great thing for experts as well. But it shouldn't, even if people are commenting things, and especially if you know they're trolls, like it really shouldn't affect your expert opinion. So turning them off, I think, is great, but also like you should have your expert opinion before talking to anybody, let alone people you don't know on the internet that just want to be jerks to you. So it's like,
you spent many, many hours doing. If you have not watched Ian testify, it's on YouTube, it's on Court TV YouTube, it's everywhere. I've had many students that come up to me after I teach for SANS and they say, hey, we make all of our new people watch this. Hey, we make even our trained investigators watch this. Because the way Ian can explain extremely technical details to, I think even my dad would understand what you meant, is astounding. So
just a stray. Her dad is just catching a stray there. Even my dad would understand. So then were they able to show that all the searches performed on the same tab also had the same timestamp? I would assume he would be able to show that. That's how it would have to be in order for that to make sense. Trevor said, yeah, don't allow yourself to be challenged. That's a great way to make sure you're right. So I would say, generally speaking, you can allow yourself to be challenged and listen to critics and allow disagreement, which we like to do in this chat and we like to do on this channel. I love respectful disagreement. I love different perspectives. I think there's a lot of people that play devil's advocate in our chat as well, just to make sure we all understand and can learn together. Sometimes I do it, but there is a difference between being challenged and Twitter trolls. Like, they do exist. So I get what they're saying from that. And there are plenty of comments that don't do anything to challenge you or help you grow or learn more. So I would accept that. Al Dente, well, he got swayed by a true crime podcaster to look into the Karen Reed case. Good one. That's a good one.
I personally thank you, and I love learning from you and watching you do this, but this is truly the masterclass. If you want to learn how to do courtroom testimony, you watch Ian Whiffin. I'm going to give you a little applause here. This is also why my family, the kids, think Ian's a doctor, because he's so smart. So he's Dr. Whiffin, according to our household. But I want to break you through, or walk you through, I should say, key concepts and advice and methodologies you use for people to testify successfully in court. So I'm going to give you your points and then have you just chime in with, what do these actually mean to you?
Sure.
The first one, know your evidence and know it deeply.
So really there, I mean, it's easy to just create a report and present the data.
Sometimes if I'm laughing, it's not always at what the video is saying, but while I watch the video, I'm also reading the comments that are making me laugh. like really making me laugh.
But you really need to understand what that data means. How did that data get on the device? Why is it there? What are the other possibilities that could explain it? Is it deleted? If it's deleted, how was it deleted? All these kind of components that really mean that you understand the data rather than just showing what the data is on the device. Like, did somebody do a search, or is it the result of an autocomplete? Were they at a location, or did they just search for the location? There's so much data you can get from a device that can mean different things. You really need to understand what you're testifying to.
I love that. And I've been feeling the pain of that one myself. All right, next up, identify the make or break evidence. So make or break in quotes.
Yeah, so I think this comes with experience. After a while, you start to recognize not just which artifacts exist, but which are the important ones, which are the ones that you really need to spend additional time validating, verifying, testing, researching. If it's simply like an SMS message, for example, that exists on the device, it's pretty straightforward. We know why the SMS message was there. So it may be really good evidence, but it's also really easy to explain. And I think everybody in the world understands what an SMS message is. But if we're talking about something such as a location, for example.
Well, saying everyone in the world knows what an SMS message is like saying everyone in the world knows what a timestamp is, right? But sometimes with experts, things are not always as they seem, and you have to explain things and over-explain things. And what does it mean? And why is it an SMS? And we call it a text message. Are all text messages the same? What about if it's an iPhone or an Android, right? So there's some background to it, just like a timestamp. It says this search happened at 2:27. Everybody knows what that means, right? You got to be careful about saying things like that as an expert. Never oversimplify.
There are multiple reasons the location could be there. It could be really important information. So you really need to know why it's there. And that's why you kind of focus on it and do the additional validation and testing.
Yes, I agree. That is important. I'm going to agree with a lot of what he says as an expert, right? Because he's definitely an expert witness. Pro Gamer, we are new fans of Loophole Lawyer. I would take his mean clips poking fun at U.S. flattery. He is an abrasive provocateur humor, not necessarily for the meek. The collabs with Miss Judy. Eroy said, with digital forensic being such a new unknown field, what do lawyers look for when hiring an expert to testify for their client? A lot of it has to do with their ability to explain things in a way a jury can understand and their resume. What's their background? What's their experience? Will a jury trust them because of that? And then how well do they explain it? Can we understand what they're saying? And again, sometimes it's like, some of it, there is a common sense element to it. Sometimes they explain things in a way where I'm like, okay, I don't know. I mean, they're saying it, they're the expert. It's not like I can ratify everything every one of my experts say. I usually after I've crossed the other side's expert or did a depo, I've talked to my expert, I've done a deposition, then I feel really good about what I'm positive is true, where there's some gray area, where there's some arguments where, common sense takes you for sure in this direction. So you get a well-rounded approach when you get information from both sides. I always try to see every single case I've ever had from both sides, whether it's criminal, whether it's civil, whether it's probate, it doesn't matter. I try to see what is the other side going to argue? What are their strongest arguments? Where are their weaknesses? And then on my side, where are my strongest arguments? Where are my weaknesses? Where can I attack their weaknesses? Where can I protect mine? Right? That's how you have to look at every case. Michelle, the evidence spoke to him just like the crime scene spoke to Trooper Paul. These two are legends in their own minds. Katie, hey, Peter, would love to hear your thoughts on the Kelsey Fitzsimmons case, especially the hearing from 9/11 where she had bail revoked. Thanks for... I have seen this name. I believe it's in the Massachusetts area as well. I have not had a chance to look into this yet, though. Tiff says, Peter, if you were Brian Walsh's attorney, could you use this regarding Walsh's Google searches? So here's the issue with Walsh's Google searches. I'm not sure the time is going to matter. The content and what he searched, even on the day that he searched it, regardless if it was this hour or that hour, is pretty damning. So I'm not sure even picking apart the timestamps are really going to help Brian Walsh. But I will also say I don't know the evidence in that case like I do Karen Reed's case because I've just dabbled in it because I was hoping the trial was going to start next week, but now it's not. So we'll see kind of where that goes. But I'm not an expert on that evidence, so I can't say for sure. Joy, Peter, I get wholesale Blue Point. Do you and your dad need an expert? I'm 57. I have nothing to lose if the car hits me. Oh, no. No, Joy. No. Captain Rhett, thank you so much for gifting 5 Lawyer You Know memberships.
Fantastic. All right, now the third one, which I think personally is difficult, and this is where I could let my mind run for days on end. How do you prepare for the toughest questions?
All right, so that's a great question. How do experts prepare for cross-examination? What are they going to ask? How am I going to answer it? Should you think about that? The answer is absolutely yes. You should prepare for these. You should talk to the lawyer that's hired you. Ask them, what type of questions do you expect on cross? Can you please help me prep for cross? Show humility. As lawyers and as experts, when I go sit with a doctor or any other kind of expert, I'm like, explain what happened to my client to me. Like, I don't know. Explain why. What did they come in with? What hurt? How did you know it was from this event? What caused the end of their life, right? Was it the drowning? Was it a stroke? What was it? Something that happened in the brain, in the heart? Did the drowning come first or the stroke come first? Explain it to me like I'm 5. That's I don't come in being like, okay, yeah, I know all about spine injuries because I've tried all these cases and talked to all these experts. So this was the injury, you did this procedure, this is why it worked, and this is the future care they're going to need for the rest of their life. It's like, no. You explain it to me. And then the reverse should happen, where they're like, okay, we've prepared together for your deposition or trial testimony, whatever it is. Help me prepare for cross. What are the questions you would ask me? What is their theory of the case? I think that's really important as an expert for you to ask the lawyer you're working with.
I let my mind run for days on end. Legitimately, I go over all of my reports. I'll just mention as well, my reports are pretty detailed anyway. For example, for this second trial, I did about 150, 160 pages of reports. About half of that was the actual data, and about half of it was the testing, the research, the validation, everything that supported my opinion and my position that I made in my report. So having all that information there is available for the prosecution to read. It's available for the defense to read. Everybody knows where I stand and why I stand there, and it's also useful for me while reviewing my evidence and looking back at it to understand. And to remind myself, this is why I have that opinion. I've already tested this. I don't need to think about that too deeply again because it's already on paper. I also try to.
I think he said he lets his mind run for days on end thinking about the tough questions.
To guess what are the questions that I'm going to be asked. Like, what is the real sticking point of this data? What's the question going to be and how can I answer it? And there's no possible way that you can cover all bases. There was a few questions caught me out in this trial. And
I think he shows some humility with that. There were some questions that caught me up in this trial. I actually think I don't have any beef with really what he's saying in this interview. I think a lot of it is very similar to what he said at trial, which opens up. Now, he did give some openings for cross for sure that I would use if I ever came across him. No doubt about it. But generally, he's pretty consistent with what he said in trial. And I think a lot of his answers on what should experts do, I agree with most of them.
On the whole, I knew
he's gassing him up way more than he's gassing himself up, in my opinion, so far. He is going to say something that's funny in a little bit.
What to expect. And I had a good idea what I'd be talking to.
Yeah, I think if you put yourself mentally in both sides of the courtroom, it helps you be a better witness overall.
For sure. Put yourself in the position of the prosecution, of the defense, and of the jury. Like, do they understand, or are they likely to understand what I'm explaining here? How common is this kind of information to somebody who doesn't work in digital forensics?
Exactly. All right,
so we're gonna hear what he said there again.
Understand what I'm explaining. Like, do they understand, or are they likely to understand what I'm explaining here? How common is this kind of information to somebody who doesn't work in digital forensics?
Right, that's the important.
Exactly. All right, so based upon that, your fourth tip is to tailor your approach on each case.
Yeah, this is really about how to conduct the digital investigation. Like, depending on the kind of case, depends on how you approach the data. The example I typically give is if you've got a victim who's found at home, for example, location data may not be relevant because you know where they are, you know where they've probably been most of the time. But if you find a victim out in the middle of the road, in the field, or somewhere unexpected, then location data becomes a priority because you want to know where they were before this location. Similarly, communication data may not be relevant if you're looking at a vehicle collision, for example. But if you're in more of a domestic situation, then communication could be key. So it's really about tailoring how you conduct the investigation, how you write the report based on the kind of investigation it is, to make sure that you're focusing on the right elements.
Exactly. And I also think that we aren't sitting at a desk all day, every day being investigators and examiners anymore. We are brought in to do specific things and validation and make sense of data that sometimes then expands to everything. So focusing on what's being asked, I think helps, but then speaking up when something doesn't make sense and needs to lead you down another path.
Yes.
All right, your final one. This is advice I could take in my everyday life. Block out the noise.
Yeah, so this particular case was kind of unique to me. Like I've testified in many cases before. Several of those have been relatively high profile, but this was another level.
I agree.
Personally, I found I had to turn off Twitter. I didn't open Twitter or X for probably about 8 months. I was very careful.
I don't have any beef with that, right? I think that's smart to an extent. Doesn't bother me one bit. And I think for other people that maybe haven't dealt with it, I think that's a good advice.
Other social media platforms I was using to block out anything that was related to the case. I didn't want to know, basically. I don't want my kind of opinion to be shifted based on what I'm seeing online. All I want to know is...
I don't really think your opinion should be shifted. You just said all these people have no clue what we're talking about when it comes to digital forensics. So why would your opinion be shifted? I don't get that. Now, not wanting to feel bad about yourself, people taking personal shots at you. I get it. Latif said, Peter, your honest opinion, do you think 2:27 a.m. happened? So if it were a criminal case and they had to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that the search happened at 2:27, I would be not guilty. I don't think it was proven. If they would have had to prove it was at 6:23 or 6:24, again, I would vote not guilty. I do not think that they proved that beyond a reasonable doubt. So the point is, I really don't know. What I will say is if I was on the jury for this case, for the Karen Read case, and the whole everything went on with that, I would have basically side-eyed it as sus for Jen McCabe. Could it have been then? Is that really what's going on? This whole thing just smells bad. So I think it would have been a smelly fact for me if I was a juror in this case, but I don't think they proved beyond a reasonable doubt that the search happened at 2:27. I think Ian Whiffin created doubt over all the searches to me, frankly, which again is partially what the prosecution wanted to do with that 2:27, at least create some doubt so the jury doesn't believe that's actually when it happened. More on this in a second when he talks about what Karen Read said. John, he contradicts his testimony. Now he says they can't determine the time, so they removed it. At trial, he says the search definitely occurred at 6:23. I'd have to go back and watch specifically exactly what he said because words are important, definitions are important. But yeah, he's definitely not confident about what time. Right now, to me, he said, we don't know that time is true, so we removed it. And that's as far as I would allow him to testify if I was a judge.
The data that's put in front of me, that is the data that I have to testify to and understand. I don't need that outside influence. So essentially ignore everything apart from the data.
It also didn't help when you had a team of people reminding you of something they saw. I just saw this tweet. It wasn't helpful to you. So we apologize, Ian. We had your back all along. But that's what you were so firm in your mind on, yep, I'm just going to ignore it. Me, I probably would have poured myself a glass of wine and walked right into that chaos and then cried into my wine glass. So good for you. Seriously. It's a lesson for all of us.
I don't know if she's an expert, but if she is, I'd be a little nervous, about hiring her with some of the comments here on anything high profile.
But now we're going to do, historically, this has been called mean tweets. And I remember seeing Peyton Manning reading something awful about himself where someone said he looked like a horse. It was terrible to watch these celebrities.
But also hilarious. Because again, don't take it personally, right? Also hilarious. Mean tweets are hilarious. Jimmy Kimmel, right? Made them famous. They're hilarious.
Read all of this. Ian, you're a celebrity in our household. So I am going to read these mean tweets or mean X's, whatever we call it, and see what you think about this. And the names are blurred out, okay? If you want, I could tell you, sometimes I can see how many views there were.
Don't need to know.
And there's a cuss word.
Everybody's saying she worked on Brian Koberger. Yeah, I mean,
So I'm going to say beep, okay? Ian Whiffin didn't explain. He misinterpreted data to fit the prosecution's case. He screwed up in the first trial and changed his testimony and the @Cellebrite report for the second trial.
Interesting. I don't believe my position changed at all.
really? Okay, maybe your position didn't change, but the explanation and the reporting, which was the important part, certainly changed. So he says, I don't think my position changed, and then watch the rest of his explanation.
Regarding the Google search, I don't believe my position changed at all regarding the Google search in trial 1 and trial 2. And
But did you manipulate your report?
I presented the data from the device and demonstrated my position. Obviously, we changed the tool to reflect the.
It's like one of those like we didn't nothing different. My position was the same. Obviously, we changed the report. It's like that's pretty important when it came to your presentation of the evidence. Trial 1, you didn't have a report that now no longer shows a time. Trial 2, you have a report. And your position is we continuously update these tools because things are ever changing and it's fluid. So we updated it to be the most accurate, and now it's the most accurate, and now it doesn't even show the timestamp. That's definitely different. Come on. We got to be honest with each other. And while I said I don't have a problem with a lot of what he said, I liked a lot of what he said as some advice to experts, things like that, but come on now. That's just not, that's different. If you're going to tell me that's not different, you're now losing credibility. I'm backing it up just a little bit. This is a good freeze frame.
And demonstrated my position. Obviously, we changed the tool to reflect the new understanding, but it was unrelated to what the prosecution may have wanted.
Was it? Was it unrelated to remove the timestamp that they were really trying to get rid of? That wasn't a great answer.
Yeah, upgrading your tooling is different than being a tool and modifying a report.
But when the upgrade of your tool modifies the report and the output and modifies what you show the jury, that is a change. He said change. He said change.
Thank you for not. Only 79 views, Ian, so the world didn't really even see that person.
Yeah, I hate to break it to you now. More than 79 people have seen and heard the tweet.
All right, you ready? I can't wait. I want to know what you guys think of the data. Tell Ian Whiffin to get lost and go do his job at Cellebrite. But you did do your job.
I did.
You fixed the tool.
Well, if only we all had someone like Ian Whiffin to fix a problem we have in our case, right? Now I'm being a little cheeky there, but it's like when you change something to be exactly what the person who hired you to be, like that's where you get the name of a hired gun, or experts will do whatever the side they work for wants them to, right? Like that's exactly what a lawyer would cross-examine an expert on. It's like you fixed the problem for them, didn't you? That a lawyer would absolutely pick up on that verbiage. And hey, Peter, would he be more credible without his own app? Different info/tool, changing testimony. So I don't really care that it's his app. And I don't really care, and people are probably not going to like this, I don't even care that he is saying he's got a new tool, it's an updated tool, and now it doesn't show the time. I would like him to say it doesn't show the time because the time is wrong, but he's saying it's unreliable or he can't prove that it's true. But when you do all that, I'm okay with him doing all that if he absolutely believes it's the truth. I've had experts that have had minor changes in their report after they've turned in their report or after their deposition, and I'm like, is it true? Can you explain why it's true and how it's true? Can you explain why you had to do it in this timeline? And if so, we go with it because it's the truth. But do not say nothing has changed. Do not say you didn't make an update. Do not say that there are differences in what you're testifying to now than what you're testifying to before. That's the issue I have, is giving something updated and new that you're still saying is true, which is fine, but don't tell me it's the same thing and nothing ever changed. That's kind of where I have a problem.
Oh my gosh. Okay, here's another one. Seriously, I'd be curious to know how many taxpayer dollars we spent solely in an attempt to vindicate Jen McCabe. How much was paid to Ian Whiffin and Cellebrite to change their whole software to try to discredit the 227 Google search timestamp?
Okay, I'm quite happy to answer this one. My flight and my hotel was paid for twice. Other than that, I received and Cellebrite received nothing.
That's crazy, isn't it? You think he was angry when he heard some of the reports come out about what Aperture was paid and what some other people that were involved in the case were paid? So he didn't get paid at all. First off, not really that big of a flex to me. I wouldn't have cared if he would have gotten paid for the Commonwealth. Experts got paid. You know, a lot of experts got paid on different sides. Some people didn't get paid on both sides. It's like, okay. But the fact that he wasn't paid is interesting to me. Why? Why do you think he did all this? Why do you think Cellebrite did all this without getting paid? I find that to be interesting.
I love it. Okay. Doing it because you care about this.
Sometimes not getting paid says more than getting paid to me for experts and for lawyers, right? Because there's always a reason. What's the reason? And she said it's because he cared about doing the right thing. Then why does he ever get paid as an expert? That's always my follow-up question. It's like, well, I didn't get paid on this one because I believed in the cause. It's like, do you not believe in the cause when you do get paid? Because I'll tell you right now, I get paid on the vast majority of my cases. We do pro bono work every year, often for different things. But I absolutely care just as much for every single case I get paid on for the cases I do pro bono work on. That's not how I decide when I'm going to get paid and when I'm not going to get paid. It's like if I believe in a cause or if I don't believe in a cause. Come on. People deserve to get paid for the work they do. We have had this discussion on our channel so many times, and I appreciate that so much from you guys, because I always wonder, like, how much do you care about an expert getting paid? And usually you guys say, it doesn't bother me. If a professional gets paid for the work that they do and testifying in the case and doing a report, that doesn't bother me. And I appreciate it. I've learned a lot because I used to think, oh boy, I'm going to smash this defense expert because he's been paid X amount of dollars. And you guys are like, no, we don't really care. And I've learned that's something I've kind of changed my approach on as a trial lawyer because of you guys, because of society, the people that are going to be on my juries. What do they think about that?
I love it. Okay.
I'm having so much fun with this, by the way. I did not even realize we were over an hour, so I should probably wrap it soon. We are going to finish the rest of this video, but hit the like button if you guys haven't already, since we got the extra long episode going into overtime. I should probably wrap it because the rewatch crew maybe doesn't like them going so long. I like to try to keep all of the shows around an hour, but this was just very interesting and just kind of fun to discuss it with you guys and learn what you think.
It because you care about the data.
Doing it because it's the right thing to do, for sure.
Yeah.
He's doing it because he cares about the data and it's the right thing to do. That's why he didn't get paid. Okay. Usually it's like, I started working on the case. They couldn't afford me. I was already in it. I wanted to help them. I didn't want to leave them hanging, so I did it. I did it anyways. You should always believe in the cause of what you work for, in my opinion.
And not saying who was guilty or who was not. For the record, anyone watching, I used to always ask Ian, like, so what do you think? So what do you think? Like, I just wanted his opinion. And Ian's like, well, the data shows this.
Exactly. That's all I can speak to.
All right. Now this one, 54 views.
Again, I think that's the right answer from him, not so much from her, right? Telling us her mindset. I see a lot of you guys saying she worked on the Koberger case.
Okay. 54 people around the world saw this. Ian Whiffin was not credible. Come on. You're not credible, Ian. All right.
Okay. I mean, everyone has an opinion.
59 views. Ian Whiffin didn't destroy anything except at Cellebrite's credibility.
Okay. I mean, yeah, I don't know how to respond to that. I present the data. I believe from Cellebrite's point of view, we did the right thing. And I'll die on that hill.
Well, Cellebrite had your back 100% through and through on all of this. So I feel like our credibility skyrocketed because of your brain. So thank you. Seriously, we are trusted. You are trusted. I think our team of experts are more trusted now than ever before because of your testimony. All right. Now there's a new one. Okay. This is the best one. So there's a picture of Mark Zuckerberg in his gray t-shirt and you from your Artex website or your double black in your gray t-shirt. And it says, am I on crack? Or is Mark Zuckerberg and Ian Whiffin essentially the same damn person? # Karen Reed.
my bank account would
You
disagree.
do look alike in this picture a little bit.
My bank account would disagree, said. A funny response. Like, I don't hate this guy at all. Just full transparency. I think his comments make me ask a lot of questions. And I think it'd be really interesting to depose him for a couple hours and just really dig in. Now, not just letting it all lay out in front of a jury, because I have no idea what he's going to say. And he's much smarter when it comes to this stuff than I am. But I would just like to pick his brain and ask all these questions and see where we really get at the end. Because I do think he leaves open a lot of opportunity to attack as a defense attorney with what does it actually show? What can you actually prove? What are you actually confident about? Versus probably, or it's always changing, or I could update it, or I would just delete this if I didn't think it was true. And, that does open up a lot of issues,
It's a very old picture.
You have the same haircut too, Ian, but you don't make as much money probably.
Guaranteed.
All right. So beyond all these mean tweets and all this ridiculousness and people just being social trolls, in the end, all over the battle of that 2:27 a.m. timestamp, in the second trial, Karen Reed actually said she was not having her defense expert return because Ian Whiffin was right.
We need to hear from.
Okay, so that's what she says. Karen Reed is not having her expert return because Ian Whiffin is right. That's what she says. Okay.
She was not having her defense expert return because Ian Whiffin was right.
Are we going to hear from Richard Green in this trial?
No.
Why not?
I believe the evidence is all out and in part from Ian Whiffin.
How does that make you feel, Ian, that Karen?
I believe the evidence is all out in part because of Ian Whiffin. Now, I didn't go back and rewatch all of Ian Whiffin's testimony, but I know that they liked a lot of what Ian Whiffin said. Just kind of like I said about the searches, creating doubt as to when that search happened, not really proving when that search happened. That the entire circle of where John O'Keefe's phone was, he could have been anywhere within that circle, including inside the house. So they agreed with some of what Ian Whiffin testified to, and they used it. They turned him into their own witness, which if I'm an expert, I believe, again, I'm guessing here because I'm not Karen Reed's lawyers. I have talked to them. So I believe that they believe Ian Whiffin said a lot of things that were good for them. And therefore, they wanted to just use that and say the Commonwealth's own expert, because that's a lot more powerful to a jury than the expert we paid and hired to show up. No. The Commonwealth's own expert said John O'Keefe could have been inside the house based on this diagram and the circles right in there. Yeah, house or garage, whatever. But that's what they meant, is that we turn him into our witness, therefore we don't even have to call our witness. That's usually not a compliment. Like, if another lawyer said to me, I didn't need to cross-examine the witness, the direct was so good for us, I wouldn't be like, oh, thank you for complimenting my direct examination. Because I would not take that as a compliment. Let's see how Ian Whiffin takes it.
Said your name on the screen and said, Ian Whiffin was right.
So, I mean, it was validation. I was already confident in my answer. I knew I was right with it. I was disappointed that the defense didn't put their expert on the stand to put his opinion across and to have that kind of debate and to evidence their position.
Yeah, that's the point though, right? They didn't feel like they needed to. They didn't feel like they needed to put their expert on to have the debate because what you said was good for them. That's what they felt like, right? Michelle said the number of views are also fluid.
But Karen saying that I was right is a close second. I'll take it.
I love it. And I can't speak on behalf of Karen Reed, but how you did your report and the level of detail on what was on the device versus what was on your test device and how sure you were, that had to prove to her that she didn't need an expert of her own because you were an expert for everyone.
I hope so. I tried to provide a balanced opinion. Like, I wasn't necessarily there for prosecution. I was there for the data. And whoever it helped.
Again, believe that or not, whatever. You guys probably don't believe that. I think that's a good answer. That's the right answer. That's what I want my expert to say.
I don't really care. I'm just presenting the data that's there.
I love that. Well, Ian, seriously, thank you for being Cellebrite's top expert in my mind. Seriously, and I'll say that because I saw social media or some public thing recently that Jared and I own Cellebrite. So Ian, you are our favorite expert as an owner of Cellebrite, because you can't believe everything you read. But all your work that you put into this, all of the efforts, the education that you gave us along the way on your testing, I don't even know that you even consider that, but how much you educated all of us along the way has been phenomenal. We're lucky to be on your team. We love the work that you do. Thank you all for tuning in. But Ian, most importantly, thank you. We appreciate you at Cellebrite.
Thank you.
I enjoyed listening to that. I could listen to more of him because I find some certain things very interesting. Amazing Meta said, I 100% think that they are doing this interview as damage control for the company. I have no idea. I try to learn from every single thing I watch or listen to personally. Whether I agree with them or not, I try to learn something. Joy, Peter, did you see on Canton Confidential, Peter Murphy said that he heard a high up in Canton that the FBI is coming in and taking high ups at Canton PD out in cuffs allegedly on Saturday or Sunday. I have not seen that at all. Can't confirm or deny. I do not know. All of AJ's nickels. Karen didn't say he was right. She said all the info they needed came out because some of his testimony helped the defense. I mean, I can understand why they say, oh, see, even they said Ian Whiffin is right, because technically if you say the facts and evidence came out with Ian Whiffin and we don't need to call our expert and we are going to use what Ian Whiffin said, then I guess they are technically saying Ian Whiffin is right. But if the other side is saying you're right and we want to use what you said, I don't think that's usually a compliment as an expert. That's how I would look at it. But that's just me. Okay. You guys are the best. Thanks for hanging around, even though this episode went a little longer than I planned. Because yes, Joy, I saw your super chat. I'll have to check out Canton Confidential. But I appreciate you guys hanging around this long. Hopefully you're subscribed. If not, take a second, hit that subscribe button and hit the like button. We will be back next time. But until then, we are out of here. Thanks for watching another episode of The Lawyer You Know. If you enjoyed the episode, please hit the thumbs up and share with your friends who may be interested here on YouTube. And don't forget to subscribe. You can also follow us on Instagram, X, Facebook, and TikTok. And don't forget to check out the Lawyer You Know podcast featuring new episodes every week. And if you have a case that you want to personally talk to us about in your life, if it's a personal injury case, wrongful death, catastrophic injury, car accident, truck accident, or slip and fall case, please email us at lawyeryouknow@gmail.com. And of course, all these links I just mentioned are included in the description below on this episode and every episode. So until next time, this is Peter Tragos, The Lawyer You Know.